Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome, my dear senior one students. Today, a new session of biology. Today, inshallah, we'll come to revise Unit 1 and Unit 2. Unit 1 first. Here we have 3 lessons. Chemical basis of life. We are talking in 3 lessons. Chemical structure of living organisms, bodies, carbohydrates, and lipids. And chapter 2 is talking about chemical structure of living organisms, bodies, proteins, and nucleic acid. Chapter 3 is talking about chemical reactions in the bodies of living organisms. And after that, we have Unit 2 talking about the cell structure and function. Chapter 1 is talking about cell theory. Chapter 2 is talking about cell ultrastructure. Chapter 3 is talking about differentiation of cells and diversity of plants and animal tissues. Let's go start the beginning. Of course, we will revise quickly Unit 1 and Unit 2. We want to cover these lessons quickly, inshallah. For example, we can cover lesson 1 and 2 today. Today we can cover lesson 1 and 2. We can cover carbohydrates and lipids today. And next session, inshallah, proteins and the nucleic acid. Today we'll cover chapter 1, carbohydrates and lipids. Let's start talking about chemical structure of living organisms, carbohydrates, and lipids. As you know, there is biological macromolecules making your body and my body. Our body is made of 2 types of molecules, organic molecules and inorganic molecules. جسمنا بيتكون من مواد عضوية ومواد غير عضوية. And our body is made of many systems. The body, if we are talking about the body, it's made of systems, and each system is made of organs. Like, for example, the digestive system is made of many organs, like stomach, esophagus, large intestine, small intestine, liver, kidney, liver, and for example, rectum, and so on. This is the organs of the digestive system. And every organ is made up of tissues. For example, if we are talking about the stomach, for example, it's made of many tissues, like muscular tissue, connective tissue, and also it has the blood, which is also connective tissue. Epithelial tissue is lined with epithelial tissue, and every tissue is made of units called cells, smaller units called cells. And what inside the cell, it is called cellular organelles. This is the levels of the body of living organism. But before we are talking about the cell and its structure and the organic molecules, we have to know that we have 2 types of molecules in our body, organic and inorganic. Organic molecules and inorganic molecules. In the organic molecules, we have the compounds which contain carbon and hydrogen. Basically, the carbon is a basic organ, a basic element in these molecules. And the biological macromolecules contain carbon and hydrogen, like carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and the nucleic acids. This is our discussion and this is our topic in this lesson. And also we have inorganic molecules in our body. Inorganic molecules often don't contain carbon, like water and salts. They are also component of our body, but they don't contain carbon as a basic element. If we go to study the biological macromolecules, we have to know they have another name, which is called polymers. The polymer is the other name of the organic macromolecules. Protein is a polymer, carbohydrate is a polymer, lipids are a polymer, and the nucleic acid is a polymer. The polymer is a large-sized organic molecule or organic compound. It's made up of smaller units called monomers. So we have a polymer, and the polymer is made up of a monomers like this. For example, a polymer, many monomers like this, join together, many monomers like this, can join together to make a polymer. So, for example, this may be a protein. Monomers can join together making a polymer. The protein, for example, is made from a series of amino acids. A series of amino acids joined together by a bond called peptide bond to make this polymer, which is protein. So we have monomer make, the monomer here, for example, is amino acids. This monomer join together to make a polymer, which is protein. Okay, the protein is a polymer, okay, and the amino acid is a monomer. This one is a monomer, and the protein is a polymer. So the monomer is made of joined together to make the polymers. Monomers join together by a bond, a certain type of bond, to make a polymer. Like here, with the example we have discussed, amino acids are monomers joined together to make a polymer, which is protein or polypeptide, because it's made by joining the units of the monomer together by a peptide bond. The way of bending or the bond is made by a process called polymerization. The monomers join together by a process called polymerization. The polymerization is a formation of polymers from a joining between monomers. The polymerization is a process of joining monomers together to make a polymer, like joining amino acids together to make protein. Let's start with the first type of polymers, the first type of biological macromolecules, organic molecules, which are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is the first example of biological macromolecules. Carbohydrates are made up of monomers called monosaccharides. الكربوهيدرات أو النشويات بتتكون من وحدات صغيرة تسمى السكريات الأحادية monosaccharides. The general formula of monosaccharide is CH2O by N. So the number of hydrogen is double to the number of carbon and oxygen. Number of hydrogen is 2H2. This means if you have one carbon, you will have two hydrogen. If you have two carbons, you will have 4 hydrogen. If you have 3 carbon, you will have 6 hydrogen. And you can multiply the total number by N. Can multiply the total number by N. Like we are talking about glucose, for example, C here equals 6. In glucose, which is a carbohydrate, a monosaccharide, in glucose we have C6, N equals 6. So H12 and O what? O will be what? O will be what? 6. So glucose is a molecule of a simple sugar or a monosaccharide, which is made of 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. The ratio or the percentage is 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, respectively. The percentage or the ratio between a carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is 1 to 2 to 1. The percentage or the ratio of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Let's start the simple, the types of carbohydrates, classification of carbohydrates into 2 types, simple sugar and complex sugar. Simple sugar or monosaccharide and disaccharide. The simple sugar may be monosaccharide or disaccharide. So monosaccharide is a simple sugar. Also disaccharide is a simple sugar. They are soluble in water, like the sugar which we add to coffee, or we add sugar to tea. The sugar here, the sugar which we add to our coffee is called saccharose. Saccharose is a disaccharide. It has a sweet taste and it is soluble in water. It has a sweet taste and it is soluble in water. And they have low molecular weight. They are soluble in water. They have low molecular weight and they have sweet taste. This is the simple sugar or simple carbohydrates, like glucose sugar, like fructose sugar, like galactose sugar. This is the monosaccharides. Monosaccharides such as glucose, fructose, galactose, and ribose. All of these are monosaccharides. There is one difference between ribose and the glucose, fructose, and galactose. The difference between ribose and the first three type monosaccharides, ribose is a pentose sugar. It has 5 carbon atoms. 5 carbon atoms. It has 5, 6. Okay, it has 5 carbon atoms. But in these three, we have 6 carbon atoms. C6. Okay. The difference between ribose is a pentose sugar, but glucose, fructose, galactose are hexose sugar. It has 6 carbon atoms, but only ribose has 5 carbon atoms. So it is called, it has another name which is called ribose sugar or pentose sugar. The disaccharides also are considered from simple sugar. Disaccharides such as what? The meaning of disaccharide, you bend 2 simple sugar together, 2 monosaccharide together to make 1 disaccharide. Like the bend between glucose and 2 glucose molecules to make 1 maltose molecule. The malt sugar or maltose made of 2 units. Made of 2 units of simple sugar, made of 2 glucose sugar units. So this is the bond between glucose and another glucose, making maltose sugar, the malt sugar, sukkar shair, made of 2 glucose molecules. And we have saccharose, the cane sugar, sukkar al-qasab, made of 1 glucose and 1 fructose. 2 molecules of monosaccharides, 1 glucose and 1 fructose. And finally, lactose sugar, the milk sugar, the sugar found in the milk, made of 1 glucose molecule and 1 galactose molecule. 2 monosaccharides make the lactose sugar. So we have here 2 molecules then together of monosaccharide make what? Make a disaccharide. 2 molecules of monosaccharide make what? Make a disaccharide. A disaccharide is made of 2 units, but the monosaccharide made of 1 unit only. 1 unit only. This is the monosaccharide made up of 1 unit only. So it is the simplest shape of sugar. The simple sugar or the monosaccharide is the simplest shape of sugar because it's made up of a 1 unit only. Let's move to the complex sugar. The complex sugar or the complicated sugar, more complex than the simple sugar. It is called, I have another name, it can be called polysaccharides. Polysaccharides mean it has many units of simple sugar. Many units of simple sugar, like this, for example. You can bend the many units of glucose together to make what? To make starch or to make cellulose or any type of complex sugar. It's made of many units of simple sugar. And it has no sweet taste. They have no sweet taste. The starch, Nisha, you can taste starch. It has no sweet taste. And it is insoluble in water. Doesn't dissolve in water. And they have also high molecular weight. Example of polysaccharides or complex sugar, starch, which found in the plant, and also in some living organisms, glycogen, which found in animals, and cellulose, which is found only in plant and some in algae. So the complex sugars such as starch, glycogen, and cellulose, they are polysaccharides. They made up of a big number of monosaccharides. What is the importance of carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are the basic source of energy in our life. In our body, when you get energy to make activity, you can burn some sugar. First, your body burns glucose sugar. So that you can burn the disaccharides, you can burn the glycogen. You have to know the body needs the carbohydrates to get energy. Also storing energy. The glucose sugar level, when it increases in the body stores it in the form of glycogen in the liver and muscles. You know, the insulin hormone helps in storing glucose sugar in the form of glycogen in the liver and in the muscles. So storage until we can use glycogen after that, after finishing the amount of glucose in our body. So we can store glucose, the simple sugar, in our body in the form of carbohydrates or starch. Animals and the humans store them in the body in the form of glycogen in the muscles. But the plant is stored the starch. Carbohydrates stored in the plant is called starch, but carbohydrates stored in the human and the animals is called glycogen. Also, carbohydrates are the basic component of some part of the cell, such as the cell wall, which is made of cellulose, which is a complex sugar. Cellulose is a complex sugar found in the cell wall of the plant. It's help in building the plant's cell wall. And the plant also protoplasm and the many cellular membranes. So it helps in building the body. The carbohydrates help in building the body, especially the plants. This is the first type of biological macromolecules, which are carbohydrates. Let's move to the second type of biological macromolecules, which is called lipids. الدهون. Lipids also are biological macromolecules, but they have bigger units, bigger weight, bigger than carbohydrates. They have oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. Lipids don't dissolve in the polar solvent, but they need to dissolve in non-polar solvents. They don't dissolve in polar solvents such as water, but they dissolve in non-polar solvents such as carbon tetrachloride and benzene. If you have a drop of oil on your clothes, you cannot clean it with water. You need benzene, for example, to dissolve the drop of oil. So they don't dissolve in water, but they dissolve in non-polar solvents such as carbon tetrachloride. The molecular structure of the lipids. Lipids made up of smaller units called fatty acids, formed of 3 fatty acids, and joined with a glycerol molecule. a type of alcohol called glycerol. Glycerol is a type of alcohol. Through 3 fatty acids. So the building unit of lipids, the monomer of lipids is the fatty acid. Glycerol is an alcohol having 3 hydroxyl group, 3 OH group. The glycerol is an alcohol made of 3 hydroxyl group. We divide lipids into simple lipids and complex lipids. The simple lipids, such as what? Such as oils, fats, and waxes. Oils, fats, and waxes. The simple lipids formed from reaction of fatty acids with alcohol. They are classified according to the structure of the fatty acids into fats and waxes. Oils, fats, and waxes, according to the structure of the fatty acid. The oil, first, the oil, like oil which we put on the food, we add to the food, is a liquid, has a liquid form. Because, why it is a liquid? Because the fatty acid in the oil is unsaturated. The fatty acids in the oil is unsaturated. They have no large amount of hydrogen. They are unsaturated. So the fatty acid join with glycerol, but they are unsaturated fatty acids. Unsaturated fatty acids. The oil found in the body, in your body, in the hair. Your body secrete oil to the hair to make the hair moist, and also some bird feathers are covered with oil to prevent water from penetration into their bodies. So some birds can dive in the water and catch fish without being wet. بعض الطيور بتغطس في الميه بتاكل السمك من غير ما تتبل. ليه؟ Because there is a lot of oil in their feather. Also, we have the solid fats, the solid lipids, which are fats. They are solid. Why they are solid? Because they have here saturated fatty acids. The meaning of saturated fatty acids, they have large amount of hydrogen. They have large amount of hydrogen and single bonds. And they connect with or bend with glycerol, the alcohol glycerol. And fats found stored under the skin of the animals and the human. Some animals like the polar bear and the penguin, they have a lot of fats under their skin because they live in a very cold regions, so they need an isolating layer. They isolate their body from the cold weather. So the bear is very fat and the penguin is very fat. Waxes, the third type of simple lipids, waxes. Also, they are solids. They have fatty acid with a very high molecular weight, higher than fats and oils. And alcohol different from glycerol. It is not glycerol because glycerol has 3 groups of hydroxyl, but the waxes have mono hydroxy alcohol. The alcohol in waxes is not glycerol. It is another alcohol with 1 hydroxyl group only. So this is the difference between wax, fats, and oil. Wax, there are heavy fatty acids, heavyweight fatty acids, blend with monohydroxy alcohol. Wax cover the leaves of the plants, like the desert plants, to keep the water inside their body, like the cactus or the fig, the cactus and the barberry fig. You have some wax on the leaves of the plant to prevent the loss of water by transpiration process. عشان البلانت عايش في الصحراء بيبقى مش عايز يعمل لوس اوف ووتر، فجلده او الليفز بتاعته بتتغطى طبعا من الشمع. To prevent transpiration process لمنع عملية النتح، فقد الماء بالتبخير. transpiration process عملية بيفقد فيها النبات الماء بالتبخير زي العرق بتاع الإنسان. transpiration process هنمنعها ازاي؟ بطبقة من الواكس، a layer of wax، شمع على النبات زي الصبار cactus to prevent loss of water by transpiration process. طب ده كان simple lipid. تعالوا نروح للcomplex lipid. complex lipid course joined with new substance. Hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen joined with sulfur or and phosphorus. So we call them complex lipid. We have here carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen joined with another element like phosphorus and sulfur. So we call them complex lipid. We have example here, phospholipids. The lipids occur in the membrane of the plant and animal cell. The animal cell and the plant cell have a plasma membrane, which is made up of double layer of phospholipids. Phospholipid is a basic structure of the plasma membrane. It's like that of the fat, but for phosphate group and choline replaces the third fatty acid. So they have two fatty acids only. Two fatty acids only, and the third fatty acid is replaced by phosphate group and choline group. So, or choline molecule. We have the structure of the phospholipids, two fatty acids only, and the third fatty acid replaced with phosphate group and the choline. We have also another example of complex lipids, which are lipids derivatives. Lipids derivatives. المشتقات الدهون. They are lipids which are derived from complex and simple lipids by hydrolysis process. Hydrolysis process. Adding water. Hydrolysis meaning adding water. Okay. Example of the derivative lipids: cholesterol, which found in the plasma membrane; hormones, which found in the body of living organisms and activate some chemical reactions in the body; and steroids. Steroids also help in making some hormones. All of these examples of derivative lipids. The importance of lipids: they are a source of energy, and they have bigger amount of energy than the carbohydrates. They have bigger amount of energy than the carbohydrates. So your body in the beginning burn glucose, yani carbohydrates first. But if carbohydrates finish, the body start burning or start using fats. Fats have amount of energy more than carbohydrates, but the body doesn't use them unless the carbohydrates finish from the body. So the human body begin to release energy from lipids when it runs out of carbohydrates. If the carbohydrates finish, the body starts burning lipids. So if somebody wants to make a diet, when we have to make some exercises, run for long distance, and burn some fats from the body. Fats are also important because they are a main component in the cell membrane. The cell membrane is made up of phospholipids. The phospholipids is a complex lipid which has phosphorus element, phosphorus. And also lipids are important. They make 5% of the organic compounds in the living cells. The lipids or the oil, the fats, made 5% of the components of the body of living organisms. Some animals such as polar bear and penguin and seal store lipids under their skin to protect them from the low temperature and the cold weather. So some animals have an isolating layer of lipids or fats under their skin to protect them from the cold weather, the low temperature. They work as a protective layer in some plants and animals, like the wax, which will protect the plant from losing water, like cactus plants. Some of them, such as steroids, work as hormones. Hormones are made, some hormones are from a fat source, like steroids. So here we come to the end of fats and lipids. We come to the end of lipids. We can solve some questions quickly. Let's read question number 1. They are from organic molecules forming the living organisms. Organic molecules, carbohydrates or acids or bases or salts. What do you think? Coarse carbohydrates. Coarse carbohydrates. Number 2, from inorganic molecules living in living organisms. Inorganic molecules, salts or nucleic acid or carbohydrates or proteins. Coarse, yeah, it is salt. Biological macromolecules or general formula CH2O by N are called nucleic acid, carbohydrates, proteins, or lipids. Coarse carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are stored in the plant in the form of starch, oils, glycogen, or alcohol. Course, it is starch. Carbohydrates are stored in the animal and the human in the form of starch, oils, glycogen, or alcohols. Course, it is glycogen. Now we come to the end of the session. Thank you, and inshallah next session we'll study together, inshallah, proteins and the nucleic acids. Thank you and goodbye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.